Imagine a world where your name is your shield and your father's status is your sanctuary. In the heart of West Africa, 1745, a young boy lived this reality. His name was Olaudah Equiano, but in a single afternoon, that shield was shattered and the sanctuary became a cage. This is his story, a resilient soul who survived the horrors of the Middle Passage to transform from an enslaved sailor into a powerful voice for abolition. Olaudah was born in Igbo, in what we now call Nigeria. It was a society built on order. Everyone had a role. Everyone contributed. At the top of this social fabric stood his father, a village elder, an embronche. He was a man of status, a judge who settled disputes and commanded respect. Olaudah grew up in the warmth of a loving home, bound by a deep, unbreakable connection to his mother and his sister. He wasn't just a child. He was the heir to a legacy. The day that changed everything started like any other. Olaudah and his sister were home alone while their parents were out working the fields. Usually, the village was a fortress. Sentinels stood on watch, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of intruders. But on this day, for reasons history will never truly know, the watchmen were absent. The silence was a trap. Suddenly, the doors burst open. Strange men, intruders with cold eyes, lunged into the house. Before they could even grasp what was happening, Olaudah and his sister were snatched from their sanctuary. No goodbyes, no mercy. They were dragged into the dense, suffocating canopy of the jungle. They were no longer children. They were captives. This kidnapping wasn't a random act of violence. It was a cold, calculated business model. In Africa, the trade in human beings was becoming a grim engine of wealth. And at the coast, the hunger was growing. European ships sat on the horizon like vultures, waiting for the tribes to deliver goods. The demand for slaves was skyrocketing, and children like Olaudah were the ultimate prize. After days of forced marching through the tangled vines, the siblings reached their breaking point. Exhausted, starving, and broken, they were finally allowed to stop and sleep. That night, under the indifferent stars, they lay in each other's arms, weeping. Their tears were the only thing they had left. The next day, a flicker of hope appeared. Olaudah saw people passing by. He opened his mouth to scream, a desperate plea for salvation. But the kidnappers were faster. They didn't just silence him. They bound his limbs tighter, stuffed his mouth, and shoved him into a large, suffocating sack. In total darkness, he felt the world move as he was carried like a piece of equipment. The only comfort in this nightmare was the nights. Every night, Olaudah and his sister would find each other again, bathing in each other's tears, clinging to the only person who knew who they really were. But then came the cruelest blow of all. The captors tore them apart. They were sold to different masters. Olaudah had never felt a pain like this. It was a grief so heavy it physically choked him. He stopped eating. He gave up on life. His new captors had to force-feed him, literally cramming food into his mouth to prevent their investment from dying of a broken heart. For months, he was traded like a commodity. At one point, he stayed with a family whose culture felt like his own. They treated him with kindness, almost as one of their own. It was a reminder that slavery in Africa was often social, not mechanical. But the mercy was temporary. The gears of the transatlantic trade were turning. During this long journey, fate played one last cruel trick. He crossed paths with his sister one more time. They held each other, a brief moment of shared trauma, before they were ripped apart again. he would never see her face again. Finally, the air began to change. It grew salty and cold. Olaudah, a boy from the deep interior, had never heard of the sea. He had never seen a body of water larger than a river. When he finally stepped onto the coast, he froze. Before him lay an endless, terrifying blue horizon, and anchored in that water was a giant wooden fortress of death, a slave ship. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know what a European was. He only knew that the life of the boy from Ibo was dead, and the nightmare of the Middle Passage was just beginning. As Olaudah was carried onto the ship, he was convinced these white men with long hair and horrible looks were spirits or cannibals sent to eat him. The stench below deck was so foul, so lethal, that he became instantly nauseous. He saw men chained together, their faces masks of despair. He witnessed people jumping overboard, choosing the mercy of the sharks over the misery of the chains. This was the Middle Passage, a journey where humans were packed tighter than books on a shelf. Olaudah survived, but the trauma of those weeks at sea would stay with him until his dying breath. In the Americas, he was sold again. But his life took an unusual turn. He was bought by a British naval officer who gave him a new name, Gustavus Vasa. Though he was still a slave, Olaudah spent years at sea, learning to read, write, and navigate. He became a skilled trader in his own right, saving every penny he earned from small side deals. In 1766, the impossible happened. He offered his master 40 pounds, the exact price of his own life. With a trembling hand, his master signed the manumission papers. At age 21, Olaudah Equiano was no longer property. He was a free man. Equiano settled in London, but he couldn't forget the millions still in chains. He joined the Sons of Africa, a group of educated black men fighting for justice. He realized that to end slavery, he didn't need a sword, he needed a pen. In 1789, he published his autobiography. It was a masterpiece of political strategy. He didn't just write a book, he went on a massive book tour across the UK and Ireland. He stood in front of crowds and told them, "I was that boy in the sack. I was that man on the ship. We are human, just like you." His influence was massive for 3 reasons. The eyewitness. He provided the first ever detailed account of the Middle Passage. The British public could no longer pretend they didn't know the truth. The economic argument. He cleverly told British merchants that a free Africa would be a better trading partner than a slave-owning one. He hit them in their pockets. The human proof. His intelligence and eloquence destroyed the racist myth that Africans were primitive.